Hi, my name is Benedict for Higher Hertz. In today's review, we are looking at Cakewalk by BandLab. It's a free DAW, but as I'm going to show you, there are some significant costs with using it. It's a review that is going to cover some really good things, particularly in the third section, the mixing features. There are some very nice things about this. There are some bad problems in that it's still slightly buggy software. We can see one of them sitting right here. There's let me just move my head for you, a little dialogue that has not gone away and is not ever going to go away. Software is nowhere near as buggy as it used to be back when it was Sonar, but still there are some issues inherent and which will probably never go away because Cakewalk never got rid of them. It's also a messy program, so that's the ugly. That when you save a state, like if I save my project looking exactly like what you see here, when I reopen it, it's not going to look like this. And that to me is just an absolute no-no in modern software. From about 20 years ago, it started to be pretty standard that you say your DAW saved the whole state. As in, if you left it looking like this, you reopen it and it'll look like this. Whereas it doesn't happen here. Now, maybe somebody who knows the software better than I will come and say, well, if you go save something or other in the workspace, it'll remember it for you. But I gotta say that is archaic at best. And it's going to cause you problems. Cakewalk has a very long history, and that has a big impact on what you're buying into. And you might go, but it's free, so why does this matter? And I'm living now, so why does it matter? Now, because you've got the weight of ages affecting what's happening here. And I'm not saying that because it's old, it's bad. There are a lot of older softwares which I think are great and actually exceed new ideas because they're more well-rounded. However, there are some problems with this, especially for your targeted users. Looking at BandLab and who they are, they have run an app for quite some time on phones, and it'll run on your desktop inside your browser. I'll cut away and show you a little instance of my using it. So as you see, simple, quite cute. I really like the white background. You can make it dark, but I prefer work in a light background, and I think that it's rather cute. Reminds me of sort of the early 90s. It's useless in terms of a real DAW. BandLab got their hands on the Cakewalk code, the Sonar code, when Gibson killed it. Cakewalk was very focused around guitar type acts. So doing rock, country, traditional kinds of music. They made several forays into loop-based things and little virtual studio type stuff, but to be honest, they always failed. BandLab, who specialize in, well, to start with, apps and then loop packs and online mastering, picking up a piece of software which was focused on guitar players and saying, here, this is your step up. If you've enjoyed the little app, then here's your step up. But the problem is, what they're asking you to step up to doesn't compete with what you really want to be doing, or doesn't catch up with what you really want to be doing. And that's going to be a frustration for you, because the question we have to ask is, this is free, so why is it free? Is it fit for purpose? Well, no, because it wasn't designed for this. There are lots of newer applications which are designed for that process. They handle it well. Cakewalk was never designed for loops, and so it doesn't handle it super well. That's one of your serious problems with this. The DAW may be free, but the DAW is probably not fit for the purpose that you're looking for. The other problem will be that because BandLab is a community and you've got it free, they will be constantly bombarding you with you need this, you need that to be pro. You need to use our mastering service to be pro. You do not need this. That's an incredibly corrosive situation to be in. Imagine Prince back when he was 17, 18, 19, sitting there in his basement with some keyboards and a microphone and a guitar and a bass and what have you, and putting together his tapes and going and playing them to people. Imagine if they had said, yeah, Prince, but your 300 hertz is wrong. And yeah, while your sequential 6 tracks is sort of okay, you really should have been using this loop pack because that's more fashionably blam and man. That kind of corrosion would have probably undermined Prince, and we wouldn't have had Prince as we had him. Yes, he imploded maybe 40 years later, but we wouldn't have gotten Purple Rain and all the other amazing things that he got to do. So please be very aware that there's a cost involved here. You're moving yourself into an environment in which they're constantly going to be saying to you, what you're doing isn't quite good enough, but if you spend more money with us, if you commit more to us, you let us lead you, then you'll get better. No, I can promise you will get worse. You'll get more and more confused, as you will get more confused whenever you open the software and it's rearranged itself. And when you go to find features that you just can't find. I spent about half an hour finding this. I knew it was there because I remember I had seen it. And I thought, oh, I'd like to tick that box. I assumed logic would tell me it would be in preferences. No, it's here. Yes, all DAWs are prone to this because they accrete, as in they glue features on top rather than centralizing them, embedding them in the workflow. But this just suffers with that all over the place. It's inconsistent from one action to another. It's inconsistent. So while it works, and you can remember all of these things given time, the workflow is far from elegant and it will confuse you. If you have multiple screens, it will ease a little bit. Here's me working across 3 screens. It does ease a bit, but I gotta say that even there, it does not handle 3 screens as elegantly as Reason or Bitwig, or I believe Studio One. End of part 1. Part 2. Part 2 is where I will show you using inbuilt sounds a piece that I built. Now, it's not really about, is this a good piece of music? I don't think it is. But just to show you that there are some things that are built in. And they are, in their own way, kind of good. You've got a drum kit built in. There are a whole pile of presets in here, different kinds of kits. It's okay. It's not the best. We've got a bass. It's okay, but it's not the best. We have an electric piano. Exactly what that is, I'm not sure. You've got different samples of different types of things, so you've got whirlies and CP70s and what have you. So the sample sets are reasonable in their breadth, okay in their quality. You can get good results with them, but you won't likely get the best results. You also have this thing. The TTS is a general MIDI, generic MIDI thing that just has a whole pile of sounds in it. So you've got, I don't even really remember how you find them. Oh yeah, you've got lists of these sounds, but are they any good? No, they're actually not very good at all. They can get you through a composition, but they are not particularly good scratch pad sounds even at that. You do have a little string section, which has basses, cellos, and violins or violas. This one's actually almost okay. You can get some interesting sounds from that. And then you have, in terms of effects, quite a grab bag. And now these effects, now where is it? Oh, it's in here. These Sonitas effects are good. They go back 20 or so years, and they're DirectX format, so you can't run them in any other DAW. But while they're ugly and confusing for a novice, they're actually technically good. They sound good, and they've got a lot of well thought out parameters. The Sonitas things are well respected and were at the time. It was like, oh, Cakewalk has Sonitas on board. And if there were a way to run these things as VST, it's entirely possible that I and quite a few other people would still run them. So they're there as effects and what have you, but you may find them hard to use. So looking quickly at the piece that was written. As you probably notice, the drums and bass are okay. The electric piano just struggles. The guitar is, well, horrid. And I tried to improve it rather than using anything on board by using things that you can download off the internet, which are supposedly really good. Honestly, I struggle to use them in my own work. If you want full-on metal out of real guitars, then yes, you can get good results. I hear that, but the guitar just doesn't seem to want to be saved, and the strings, which I struggle to get to work nicely in the mix, but on their own, they seem like they have great promise, so I'm not going to write them off. To give you a sense of context, this was free. I took the MIDI from here, so exported the MIDI, which actually worked well. Some free DAWs you can't export MIDI properly. I put it into Reason and I used the ID8 instrument, which is a very simple scratch pad of sounds. Here's the difference. So while the Cakewalk sounds are coarse, I want to say unusable, but they're coarse, the investment of roughly $400, I think, in Reason, straight up, using the stock sounds, you hear that the sounds are far more elegant. They're far more worthy of a mix. The guitar works very nicely, so for a Strat or Telly style single picked line, that works nicely. That's using stock effects. That's just using the scream in Reason, which is not designed particularly as a guitar amplifier, but get a nice musical result. The strings are a little more syrupy than what's in Cakewalk, but ultimately they have mixed in nicer and sounded sweeter. So I'm not trying to say, look, get one over the other, but I'm just saying if it's free, there are some significant costs in the quality of what you get. There are some frustrations as well in the MIDI. So what is nice is that everything's fairly clear. You can see the notes are named. That's all quite nice. In terms of handling the screens, moving things backwards and forwards, personally, I find they kind of leap around a little. And that's not unique to this. I get the same in Reaper and what have you. A lot of times these screens feel more like Windows 3.1 than they do a tool. I don't want to be looking at my computer and feeling like it's Windows 3.1 running Excel. I want to be looking at it and feeling like it's helping me do music. The plus is that, given a bit of care, you can actually work out how to view all of your tracks at once. So when you're composing, it's nice to be able to say, oh, okay, I'm going to put this line here and know what my harmony is with regards to the other notes that are there. We probably should get rid of the drums, because obviously nobody harmonizes with drums. So we can look at this and go, okay, yeah, my harmonies are probably going to work. That side is good. Once you work out how this works, that side is really quite good. We can move from one to another We can even click on the other one and focus it. That's nice. That's actually what happens in Reason now. It happened in Sonar before it happened in Reason, but it works in Reason. I personally find it a little more elegant in Reason, but I'm more used to Reason. So you can control your notes quite nicely, you control your velocities and what have you. All of that is really pretty good, apart from just a feeling of some clunkiness. It's hard to locate and know where you are in terms of the composition, but you can, by clicking on things, get some indication. So it's still there, you just have to learn how it works. That's pretty good and better than many. Because Cakewalk started back in the MIDI era, their handling of MIDI is generally pretty good. The bad was that when I was programming drums, let's just scoot over to drums, we'll turn off all the others, I decided that, and if we listen here, I'd put in some triplet stuff. Got a little bit of death metal. Now to get the triplets, to mouse them onto the screen, I'll go away, you're annoying me too much. You zoom in and fine, okay, I get there. Where are my triplets gone? See, it's hard to find things. Okay, so they're apparently in this highlighted section, apparently. There we go. But to get the triplets, to mouse them onto a screen, I had to not only put this to triplets, but I then had to go across and change my quantize. So if I didn't do two things, I couldn't do one thing. To me, that's just a nightmare. That it's old style thinking. And while someone may say, oh, but it allows you to do this, it's like, who normally, is when they're putting triplets in, wants to put triplets in with 16th timing, with straight timing? No. So it was a bit of a nightmare to write in here compared to Reason. Fairness, I'm so used to Reason that I just fly through Reason. I can do things very fast there because I've been exclusively using it for 13 years. I've been using it for over 15. So yes, there will be some sense of, yeah, not as easy. But as you see, a little clunky, everything kept moving around, and it's like, oh, how can I get back to here? And sonically, the results just aren't as good. Yes, I could have used my Reason instruments in here, but by the time I use my Reason instruments in here, I own Reason. Why wouldn't I use Reason, which is more elegant and a better thing? So by saving yourself some money, you might be buying yourself a whole lot of heartache. That's my massive warning with this. So that's part 2. We'll now move to part 3, where we talk about actually making a mix inside of Cakewalk. And you can see that I've opened up my saved project and it doesn't look like the way I saved it. Big frustration for me. I don't want that there. I just don't want to be seeing this when I'm mixing. I don't want to see that when I'm mixing. Why I want to see these ever, I don't know. The fact that that annoys me. This kept catching me so many times. While it's nice to give people the option to hover over a knob and have it move itself with the mouse wheel, if you just accidentally happen to use your mouse wheel to scroll the page and be hovering over a device, then you will move a knob without even realizing that you've moved the knob. And that kept happening to me. I get that it's a feature that some people may like, so I'm not opposed to the idea of saying, actually, I'll move that to there. I'm not opposed to the idea of saying, here, let's let people have this option, but don't stick me with that, because every time I mess up my mix without even realizing that I've done it, because I'm trying to do something legitimate, ugly, really ugly. So, the story with this is that it was written in, again, I've got to fix all my zoom sizing. It was written 100% in Reason. I exported the stems, set my times, imported them here. All of that worked nicely. No dramas. Could rearrange, drag my tracks to where I needed them to be, all of that. So that bit was quite nice. No particular dramas. Why my reverb's bigger than everything else, I don't know, but so be it. So import it. Made a mix. So looking at the stems, not particularly important. Again, I need to rearrange this. Now again, I need to bring back this. I shouldn't need to bring it back, but I have to bring it back every time I open it. How dare the software tell me that I shouldn't need to see the input gains when I want to see them? Ugly. We've got a mixer. It's not a bad looking mixer. It's a cluttered mixer, but to be fair, most DAWs overly clutter their mixers. I guess it makes people feel very technical, but I'm not a mixer to feel technical. If I want to feel technical, then I'll pull the guts out of my computer and sit there and go, "Ooh, look, there's a resistor." Not into that. I'm into music. But it's elegant enough looking. We can color it. We can set all of our tracks to follow any bus, the color of any bus that they're sent to, and it works most of the time, except for when it doesn't. No doubt there's some logic to it, but it's not logical logic, not simple logic. Now, the good with this is that you have this Pro Channel. Pro Channel came in with Sonar somewhere along the line. It is clunkily implemented. I was going to say poorly, but that's probably unkind. It's clunkily implemented, but once you get your head around it, it works. You can insert a whole pile of modules. Braverb, I haven't really got my head around enough to say that I like or don't like it. The console emulator channel and bus system is not the 100% most elegant that I've seen. It's more elegant in Studio One, but here it is very nice and it's there. So every channel you can actually set up a emulation of as though this was plugged into a desk. And we've got an S-type, which is based around the SSL, the famous SSL consoles. The N-type, which is based around the Neve console, which has Neve's had a lovely sound. The SSL is kind of the king of usability and a nice, lovely sounding console. The Neve is a gorgeous sounding console, despite its technical limitations. The A-type, I can't remember. It might be some kind of American console, or maybe it's an old tube one. I can't remember. But nonetheless, you've got 3 different flavors, so you can say, I like this flavor or the other flavor. I would suggest, if you want something resembling authenticity, you probably pick one type for your whole mix. So the idea being that if you insert the channel module on each channel, so each individual track will have a channel module, and then when you've got a bus, whether that be your mix bus or if you're busing several things to one place, which I didn't end up doing in this mix, that you use a bus version. So by putting all of those in, you get a very small but nice amount of saturation, which adds a kind of to your mix. And the mix that's come out of this is very nice. Once you get your head around using it and overcoming the quibbles, the mixing is nice. So if you're looking at something like Harrison Mix Bus and didn't want to spend $40 for when it's on sale every 2 weeks, then you could pick this up, learn to live with its foibles, and get a similar sort of result. LA2A style compressor, so a soft compressor, very popular. Can't remember what that is. Saturation knob I've used on the master. That is Soft Tubes, and it is a wonderful thing. You've got to go through some hoops to get it from Softtube. It's free from Softtube. You've got to go through some hoops to get it, but it comes built into here. The tape emulator, which honestly I haven't used, so I'm not going to say whether it's good or bad, but it's probably as good as most of the other modules, which is pretty good. Chains, style dials, I stayed away from. I'm not a big fan of the one knob do 12 things at once kind of approach. So good set of modules that you can put into a channel. It's a bit annoying the channel lives on the side, or if you prefer, you can leave your mix channel and keep it on the side here. So whatever we click here comes up focused here. It's an either or. You can choose to do that as you wish. So that's not a bad thing. I am used to the rack in Reason, so this is not a million miles away from the rack. Not as good as a rack, but not a million miles away from that. So if we choose our instrument, our bass, let's just solo-ify him. He plays from somewhere around here, I think. Yep, there we go. Let's make sure we're focused. You really have to make sure you're focused. It's possible to not be focused. So we've got our compressor. You've got a tube input, which initially doesn't seem to do a lot. There we go. They can click as they come in and out. Imperfect, but not uncommon. You just wouldn't be doing it in a live situation. So you can drive it with the input and you can drive it with the drive. Exactly what that does, I don't know. Didn't read the manual. Shouldn't need to read the manual. There probably is a manual, but like most old software or free software, it's probably better not to read the manual. Probably better to go ask in a forum somewhere. The tube will add some saturation and overtones and harmonics. You can drive it a bit hard and get it to distort, and it's not unpleasant. It's usable. So that's a bonus. A little bit of compression, tube after that, and the EQ. The EQ in this mode is cramped, but then most EQs inside a track are cramped. But once you realize that you've got a little pop out on the side, it pops out into this. Now this is quite nice to use. It shows you what note a frequency is related to. So if you are doing note-based things, let's say you're looking to find the first harmonic of your bass so that you can get a nice smoother bass sound. If you know the frequency of your piece, if you know that the fundamental is, let's say here, you know your first harmonic is here, so you might put just a little boost around here and suddenly find that your bass seems richer and smoother without having to boost down here, which wastes a lot of mix energy. So that's nice, it's visually appealing, and you can grab and move the dots around as you like. You've got various modes for how the EQs work, which just changes the shape of them, which is not going to make a lot of sense to you, but try how they go. You'll see that the G style here, it's actually got a bit more on the front, so it's more like an analog curve. Pure is perfect shapes, a digital shape, and hybrid's a bit of a mixture of all of those. Hybrid works quite nicely. It's not the loveliest EQ I've used, but it does the job really quite nicely. It's got this little gloss function, which sometimes seems to add a nice enough little sheen onto the top end, something that in SSL language could be called air or 4K. It's nice. You can turn things on and off, so you can A/B them fairly easily. Most things will turn, like if they're off, most things will turn themselves on when you implement a function, but sometimes they don't. Go figure. But once you realize that you can pop it out, you can even pin it, then it's much nicer to use than you think it's going to be. That is a nice bonus because many DAWs do not come with a nice functional mix EQ already inside the channel for. You can rearrange any of these how you like. Personally, as they've done here, I will tend to put my saturation at the end of my list of plugins rather than at the beginning. Even though in a console, you plug it in and your console saturation is happening right there at the beginning, and then you go do other stuff. In digital, I often find it's nicer to put it at the end. Inside your mix channel, you can then decide whether you want this Pro Channel stuff to be before or after any other effects. In this case, I mixed largely using my own plugins because I know them well, and it was going to give me a better comparison to Reason, because these are the devices that I've used in Reason as well. I wasn't looking to emulate the mix, but just to say, well, with things being reasonably even, how nice a mix can I get out of this? So I can choose whether I want, in this case, the star drive that I'm adding to come before or after the processing in the Pro channel. That's nice, quite consistent with SSL style things. You can choose which way the modules go. More modern software may have had you drag them around, but it works just fine. You can insert your effects in a very sort of Pro Tools kind of a way. You end up with this matrix. Plus, in this situation, compared to many other DAWs, is these are relatively easy to read. And they seem to be large enough that you've probably got enough text in here to be able to read them. I've noticed in some DAWs that as soon as you've got a little bit of a wordy title to your plugin, that there's a fair chance it becomes unreadable here. Hate that. Because if you can't read what's there, how do you know what's there? Memory's one thing, but it should be clear, and many DAWs are not physically clear. This is physically fairly clear. Cluttered, but physically fairly clear. So that on each of the channels, you can go through and set things up. And the Pro channel stuff generally sounds nice. So you can end up with a very nice mix. Sends relatively reasonably logical. In this case, I've said, okay, bugger it, I'm not going to reset all of those to -12. I'll just set them to 0, and then I'll take off whatever I feel like I need on this channel here. That's a logical enough way to do it. Because it's coming in on a clear channel, then that's fair enough. So I've made my own reverb out of a couple of my own devices, because again, I trust this. And very nicely, we can solo this reverb bus, this send bus. We can solo that easily. That does beat Reason. It's doable in Reason, but it's a little harder. All works really nicely. Coming to mastering, it's always uncomfortable when you're working in a system you don't know and don't necessarily trust. We are given a couple of mastering plugins. I don't trust them. I'm not sure that I like them. I don't trust them. So if I don't trust them, I don't like them. I don't use this fella a lot, but I do trust it. So I grabbed this one instead to say, okay, let's get into the meat of some of this. I can just set my thresholds. I don't go on luffs, but I can see what's going on, and I do trust these meters. They just feel like they work well. So I had no problems with that. So that is doing its work after this. So I've gone in and done my EQing, my master EQing, which is okay. Not my favorite EQ, as I say, especially the tops, the shaping of this I don't love, but it does work and it sounds okay. The gloss is nice. And as I always do, a little bit of the old soft tube knob, because it works great. And honestly, you've got a beautiful sound which rivals any mix that I've done anywhere. Technically, it may even be a little, I haven't really spent much time A-Bing them, but it might even be a little nicer than the mix that I did in Reason. Not because this software is better. It actually took me longer to do this than it would in Reason, because of fighting with the software and having to reset things and generally work stuff out. But some of that'll be because I'm just not as used to the software. Let's see, that's changed itself around again. But the result is very nice. So the good is, for mixing, if you can live with its quirks, you can do very nice work in here. The Pro channel is generally pretty darn good quality that prevents you from needing to go and flub around with a whole lot of sound good devices that you probably don't understand and probably don't work nicely together. These work nicely together, and they are very workable for a very long period of time. So you don't need to waste time downloading things that people tell you are going to be great, which, let me tell you, really are not great. If you're looking for a great compressor outside of this one, because it works really nicely in some situations and not in others, then there's a review that I've just done last week on the ADHD leveling tool, which is a freebie and is an awesome piece of kit. So those sorts of things are good, but generally is a lot of time wasted on downloading 28 different compressors in the hope that one of them finally works the way you want it to. You'll get between this and especially that ADHD leveling tool anything you ever need out of compression. So in terms of downloading Cakewalk as a complete DAW, I think it probably is unwise, and you might be better off, if you're serious about this, investing proper money into buying, well, Reason's always my number one suggestion. Reason, if you're doing very electronic stuff, Bitwig is really impressive. And if I wasn't in Reason, I'd be sorely tempted to move to Bitwig or Studio One, which is kind of in the Cubasey arena, but is elegantly done. Or failing that, of course, Cubase. If you're looking for an easy way to start to mix, bearing in mind the caveats, the really good thing about Sonar is that its mix system is elegant enough once you can overcome the pain in the ass issues with things like every time you open it, you'll have lost all your gains. If you can't gain stage easily and reliably, really, it's gonna get complex. Overall, it's free, but it comes at a great cost. You might be better off simply biting the bullet and spending the money to buy real payware software. Some of the cost is that, like most DAWs, and this is going to apply everywhere you go, you might be constantly being told that you're not good enough and that you need to spend more money to be good. No, not true. You see, I've made a really nice mix here using some devices that I trust, but mostly they were made by me anyway, so it's all sweat on my own brow. Gotten a lovely mix out of this. Composing, I found unnecessarily clunky. You could get there, and if you sublimate yourself to the pain that is using such software, okay, fine. And if you're looking at Reaper or something similar, they're all about as obtuse as this. But really, I think if you absolutely aren't willing to spend any money, I question how well you'll do in this game. But if you absolutely aren't, then get this for its mixing and learn to live with the composing. But if you're trying to do loopy based stuff, it may just not be the right path for you. Go get Live. That's because that just does loopy stuff. Or get Bitwig, which is made by the people who were with Ableton and went out and said, here, let's do some things better. If you have any questions, please, not too much about the program because I don't know it super well. There are other places you can go to get more info on, the specifics of how to use this. But if you have broader questions, ask them down below. Once I become aware of them, I'll scoot on over to answer them for you. Now, also, please go over to higherhertz.com and subscribe so you get kept up to date with what's happening there and news and reviews on things. You have a great day.